Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Coronado, and tonight on the show, a recap of CF Montreal's training camp back home, CF Montreal's new signing and probable departures, and Roses FC announced their new home stadium. All that and a lot more on episode 212 of The Ball is Round. Hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Before we start, I just want to let you guys know that Hattie is still on vacation, but no worries, he's back next week. We're excited, Elias. I know we're excited, super excited to have him back. Yeah,
Absolutely. We'll wait and see how he's doing.
yeah, we're just gonna leave it all to him. We're gonna put all the pressure to him. We're gonna do nothing. We're just gonna literally just leave it all to him. We've done
Exactly.
enough. We've done everything. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Or
We're
show
just
up like
gonna
divas. Like,
yeah.
is the show ready?
We're gonna answer one word answers.
Exactly.
Anyways, Elias, how you doing? How's your weekend?
I'm great. Madrid lost. Barcelona won. Life is good.
Yes, but
Um,
it's a
ah,
one
you know,
zero victory against Alaves. Does it matter at all that it was?
yeah, because earlier this season, these are the types of games they draw and lose. So you know what?
Take it.
Right now, you close the gap. 3 points is 3 points. I'll take it.
That's it.
I'll
Yeah,
take it.
same here, man. But we beat. I want to say kill. I don't even know how to say it. Bayern beat them 4-3. They're still in first place, but man, they were winning 4-0, and they somehow in Munich allowed them to come back with 3 goals. That's
I appreciate
you
that.
don't
You understand that you don't want your fans to get bored, so you make the game entertaining.
take it. Have a half glass full. Where's the negative guy around here? To we need him. But anyways, Marseille beat 3-2. Lyon 3-2. Hattie must be
Oh,
feeling some kind of way right now. I'm sure he's ready to yell at the top of a mountain somewhere. But anyways, how's the cold treating you, Elias? Are you getting warm? Are you enjoying it?
I hate it here. Cold
I
as
went,
shit.
dude. We spent the weekend at a chalet. It was so cold, and I was just like, I was supposed to walk the dog at night, and I was just like, man, this dog and I are gonna have to come to some sort of agreement because I
Dog
am
looked at you like you're really gonna take me out there right now. Are you
not.
crazy?
We both know this has got to be done, but we both don't want to do it. So we made a deal. He wasn't happy, but it happened. Anyways, who cares about my dog? We're moving on to CF Montreal. As you know, this week it was training camp here in Montreal at home. Um, I we got to go and see it. Elias, you went on Monday. On Monday,
Monday
I
and
went on
Friday.
Tuesday. Oh, sorry, I thought you were there Monday. I went there on
Yeah,
Tuesday.
Monday and Friday.
Yeah, Monday and Friday, and I went Tuesday and Thursday. And there's one more tomorrow, guys. Those that are listening, if ever you do have that opportunity, that chance to go, highly recommend it. Even if it's as a supporter or you just want to see them, you get to see your team for free.
Or
But
if you're a student
obviously,
at Marivic, just go to the
just
sports center.
just tell your boss you're sick. We won't tell.
Don't
But
do
it's
that. Don't do that.
but no, it's a super fun and a very personal. Ella, just to give you an anecdote before we get into it, it was my first time going to Marivic for one of these training camps, and
Mhm.
as I'm walking in, I see like a little coffee spot. I'm sure I don't know the name right now, but there's a little coffee spot. I'm like, you know what, I could really use a coffee spot right now. And as I'm walking in, I hear some voices inside. And I'm like, it looks closed. It's kind of empty. Then I look inside, and then I walk inside. And I swear to God, I walk in and I see 3 people. I look to my right, and it's Gabriel Gervais on a laptop. I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah.
Then I look to my left. It's oh, geez, why am I blanking? One of the Saputo kids is there. I'm like, what is happening right now? I'm just like, I'm definitely not in the right coffee place right now. So I just I just left. I said I'm sorry, and I'm out. But it was, anyways. The point being, it's a very personal, different experience than say going to the stadium where you see them from far and all that. I'm
Yeah.
not saying going to the coffee place and you see Gabriel Chauvet. I'm not saying that, but definitely a very fun experience. And I highly encourage everyone to go. I know I got to cross some of the most fantastic. Even though I didn't get to see Elias, I got to see some of the really great people that covered this team. I got to meet Nilton George for the first time in person. Maxime Truman. I got to see. Yeah, a lot. Amin was there on Thursday night, so that was really great. So a lot of the people that cover this team that do a Vincent Detouche, just everybody was really there, super open, super great reason to connect. But how was your experience, Elias? Just I guess being there those 2 days. How did it feel to be
Yeah, it's my
at it?
second time going to it when it was set, right? Last year, because of the because Olympic Stadium was getting renovated,
Mhm.
this was a set trip. Usually, the only time they would ever go to Marie Victorin was when there was too much snow on the roof of the Olympic Stadium and there was like a safety precaution. That's the only time when they would like email you 5 minutes before training, going, "Oh, by the way, it's at Marie Vic now," and you're like,
Cat.
I'm at
I can. I
but
need time to plan to be sick. Like
You don't from day to day, you don't know what the roof
yeah,
situation is gonna be like, right? It's delightfully unpredictable. So this was my second time. I like I like the intimacy that, supporters can get because again, you go to Olympic Stadium, you're literally on the field, right? You're like right next to the field, so you could see it. So that's not a problem for media, but for supporters, it's a good way to keep in touch with the team. It's a good way because with hockey, and now the fact that there's three professional hockey teams in Montreal, two of them are doing well. You know, it's easy for CF Montreal to kind of get lost in the mix up, and that's usually what happens. So the fact that you can now have also fans come in and see, and on Friday they got to see a full scrimmage for it wasn't 90 minutes. I think it was close to like it was over an hour, but I think it was maybe like 70 minutes of scrimmage, right? Of game speed scrimmage with CF Montreal players. There's that ability to kind of connect, right? And you had supporters there, you had banners. It was great. There was even a welcome banner for all the players with
for
different
you
countries,
guys.
and it was cute, right? Um, this is how you keep Montreal, CF Montreal, on the minds of sport fans in the city, right? You're dealt a kind of crummy hand with the facilities you have are not good enough, are not winterized for a training camp. But at least you have this ability to, in some way, connect. And you're kind of making lemonade, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's something that's like you said is kind of a growing interest, right? Because there's still students that go to the school
Mhm.
and at those hours, and it was really funny because at some point I was sitting down and I just hear this kid in the side there that looked like a CJEP kid, and he says, "Man, people pay to see these people play, and I can see them here for free." And he was just like his mouth open. I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, enjoy the show, but
It's not the most productive exam week, right? Moro talking about he has
yeah, more
exams, so you couldn't
moral
make it.
people
Well,
pay.
unfortunate, but they'll be in
They'll
town sooner than
understand.
you think.
The teachers will understand.
Exactly,
No,
right?
they
You
won't.
ask for an extension or something, and then they'll be like, "But see if Montreal."
It's because I'm such a sports fan. No, do not do that. Go to school, get your studies done. All right. So training camp. What were your impressions of
Training
the
camp.
sessions you attended, Elias?
Um, a little bit all over the place, honestly.
Maybe one
The
word. Give
first
me
one,
one word.
continuance.
I like that. I would say if I used one word for the training sessions was intensity. There was intensity.
Lack of or a good amount.
I want to say a good amount, especially for this
Okay.
time of the year. I felt like it would be a lot slower. They were good. I felt
Mhm.
like they were ready to go. Maybe like as much as us fans have been waiting for the game, right? We've been waiting for to see the ball get kicked. They seem to be excited to be there. I said one word, but I'm going off on it. They were excited. They were ready to go. They seem to be all.
Yeah.
I know what the word is. They all seem to be focused on it. Focused.
Yeah, that is an impression I got. And that kind of lends to the fact that you do have a certain amount of continuity. This is the most continuity the club's had
A long time.
since, the second year of Wilfried Nancy, right? And I'm not drawing comparisons. I'm just stating a fact. This is the most continuity they've had in a while. And you do have to take advantage of that. You do have to use this time now to kind of dispel with the introductions. Yeah, you have new players, you introduce them and you integrate them into the group, but you have to get down to the nitty gritty as soon as possible because there's still a lot of work to be done, and you still are. We're going to have a different CF Montreal in front of us next year, whether you like it or not. Joseph Martinez is not there, and you need to find a new way to attack. So all these things have to start getting done, and the intensity, like you said, was good.
Yeah.
And um,
Well,
again, it's tough to see without game speed, but it was still.
but that's the thing. Like since it's not game speed, like you kind of take a look back and you're kind of like, obviously there's no winning here. They're just practicing, And what's important is that you're focusing on little things. And one of the things that I wanted to see was like how is Laurent Courtois doing in his second year, the coaching this team and leading this practices? Because last year, actually, he reminded us in the press conference that he wasn't here last year a few days because he had missed it, getting his citizenship at the U.S. And this time around, you kind of want to see like what's his approach. Is he louder? Is he happier? I mean, we didn't really get to hear much of what was going on in Orlando, but what I saw was a coach that was very observant. He kind of took a
Mhm,
step back and he let the rest of the coaches do their thing. He wasn't very like, I mean, again, he's doing his thing. He's still coaching. He's still, jumping in. I mean, at some point they were having, just at the beginning of practice on Thursday, they were doing the ronda, and they
yeah.
were all having fun and all that. And then you just see Laurent Courtois just step in as a player. He's like, oh, I'm part of it this now, So it goes to show that he's popping in when he needs to be. Maybe he felt that his presence would lighten up the mood or would do something better. He must have seen an opportunity for him to be there, and also because he did joke around with the players that lost and everything. These are the kind of things that you observe when there's no, like you said, no competition, no wins, right? It's like, what is the mood around him, and what is the mood around the players, and they just seem like, buckled in, ready to go. That was what I observed. Was there anything in particular that you were looking for the most in during when you went in, either be it Monday or Friday?
Yeah, actually, I wanted people to set themselves apart. I really wanted people to kind of make almost shoulder their way into this conversation of the starting, and I got that a lot from the midfielders just as a whole because of the fact that there's just going to be so many midfielders that are at a very similar level. But as a whole, I like the intensity that I saw, but I did not get this impression that people were out there to separate themselves from the pack. And uh, it's actually a question of ours, specifically. I know it was probably going to be, as from finding EMFC, I know it's probably going to be among tonight's topics, but I'm really curious about your opinions on the three players on trial:
Mm,
Sealy, Petrasso, and Craig, three defenders. I did not see enough from them,
yeah,
right? Dante Sealy is probably the one who I think has the best shot at making the team because he
but is that
is that.
situation or is it his skill? Do you
It's
think
a
it's a skill?
situational thing because he plays left wing back, and he does provide. He's more of a well-rounded wing back than Luca Petrasso is, who's more of a conventional left back who can also play center back, which is
Younger
what he
too,
did
right?
during the inter. He's also younger,
He has more of
so I
a,
think just
yeah.
by process of elimination, if I had to pick one trialist who had the best chance of making it, it would probably be based on my observations, Dante Sealy.
Hmm.
But from all the trialists, and I didn't see enough. I just did not see enough, and I think that kind of that is what maybe gotta find the right word here. Disappointed me a little bit because at the end of the day, everyone here is at a professional level. Everyone here is looking to earn a job. And players are more focused on not making a mistake than they were on doing the right thing and maybe kind of being a catalyst. And you're not gonna get a job on trial by just, staying at the level. That's not
Yeah.
what coaches are looking for. That's not, and so I understand this impulse to kind of just play it safe. And we got a similar question from that by Ghoulie Goat. Yes, actually. Shout out Kid and Ghoulie. Best and worst players at camp. Any trialists or academy players who are doing very well. And when will Hanadi Sinchuk join the team? We're gonna talk about Hanadi Sinchuk later.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about best and worst players, but specifically about the academy players. Owen Graham Roche is so fun to watch, and he's so interesting. And I kind of, I'm almost a little bit disappointed at the fact that there's already so many forwards and competition is this tough. But he was probably one of the more interesting prospects. But again, academy players, I kind of had the same impression. I'm more willing to cut them some slack because they are not grown ass men that have been professional football players before. They're still academy players looking to kind of grow into what that means. But again, besides maybe Alexander Gobogu. He was also very interesting because he kind of has that very similar profile to um to Aaron Herrera actually, and that was really interesting to see. And again, I did not see enough though, right?
Yeah.
And you think about and one person I want to talk about because he wasn't even in Montreal or wasn't with Montreal was Sergei Kozlovsky,
Mm.
who he's highly touted and he's one of the most promising academy products right now. He wasn't even invited to the Montreal leg. He was already sent back to the academy, so he was cut early. And I find that very surprising. And Laurent Courtois didn't want to talk too much about it. He talked about
Yeah.
competition.
He kind of gave a weird answer there where he was
Yeah,
like,
and he didn't want to talk about competition. He talked about competition a little bit, and he wanted to talk about chemistry and covering. And at the same time, he's a left back, and there's only Tom Pierce. So I thought it would have been a perfect opportunity for him to go up against Luca Petrasso, Dante Sealy, and all these other players trying to earn their spot. And if he was sent home that early, I'm hoping there was some kind of extenuating circumstance, because if it was purely on quality and competition, that's kind of concerning, because this is a perennial youth national team call up. This is, again, one of the most highly touted and highly rated academy players that they've got right now. So I'm hoping that there's another reason that they just didn't want to get into.
yeah, and that's why I was asking about Sealy if it's a situational thing or it's really a skill thing because in that case, situation with the Sergey would be the same thing, right? It's
The
situational. He
difference
needs
is you can't have a 17-year-old as your second choice left back. Right, it's just
too
it's
risky.
physically too demanding for any 17-year-old, especially when you have someone like Tom Pierce, who is not, who's definitely going to be in better physical shape than he was last year, but who's by no means a Juan. He's
Yeah,
not a workhorse. He doesn't have the or Mathieu Chouanier, who can just run up and down for 90 minutes. So you're going to be relying on your second string or whichever left back is on the bench. You're going to be relying them on a lot.
yeah,
And a 17-year-old going up against all these experienced right wingers and right backs and all that stuff, it's too much, and you have the chance to kind of do more damage than do good. So I would love to see him as a third string and give him the odd Canadian Championship game or some minutes here and there, but not as a second string. You can't.
yeah, and that's obviously something that's worrisome because like I said, Laurent gave a really weird answer where he said, he just didn't kind of meet everything we were looking for, but didn't really tell us what was it that he was missing. At some point, I'm sorry, Elias, I don't remember his age right now, but at some point you said 17, right? 17, a 17-year-old
I believe so. Yeah.
kid must start saying, okay, I've been around here a few times. Is it really going to be here, or should I go elsewhere? Like we've seen so many other academy players do and have success, or maybe some academy players that did it and actually never had success, which can happen. So it's one of those things where you want to keep a close eye on because, again, in today's day and age, I believe players want to they want to see results, and they want to see it quick. They want to see it quicker. They no longer want to wait. There was a time back in the day where players would give way to the veterans and the seniors and would wait their turn and learn from them. In today's day and age, I believe it's a little bit different, as we see in Barcelona with the wonder kid that is ripping through midfields with his
That's a
dribbling.
different. You can't
Yeah,
compare. It's
I'm
not
not
fair.
comparing him at all, but it's just other kids, other 16-year-old kids,
Yeah.
17-year-old kids are seeing him. They're like, why not me? Is it the team, or is it me? So, but in any case, those are definitely something we want to look at now. That just to kind of follow up with a question that one of our listeners had asked a little earlier. Were there any player or players that impressed you, and why? Like,
So beyond the starters, I think that's a given. The starters are really operating at a very
calling
impressive level.
starters already
I mean the players that started last year and the players that you would assume,
for continuity.
barring some kind of surprise, will get, if not a starting spot, a very prominent role. And yeah, the inclusion of Jalen Neal will maybe make some competition a bit more tricky for George Campbell and Fernando Alvarez. I don't think he's gonna, you know, I don't think Joel Waterman should be threatened right now for minutes. But I include them in the starting core from last year. They looked so settled,
Yeah.
right? And it did not affect their intensity. It didn't affect it. You didn't get any kind of sense of complacency from any of them, but they looked so much more secure in what was asked of them and also in what their role is in the team. And when you compare it to last year, where new coach, sporting director's gone, all this chaos, all this turmoil, this seems like such a more peaceful season. I should use peaceful as my word because there's been no, asteroid pointed at Earth yet. I know I'm jinxing it. And I know something's gonna happen. It's just gonna hit the fan like 5 minutes after we go off the air.
Damn it,
But
Elias. Not
but I
again.
really do think that this is the most stable that the club has been in some time, and that goes a long way. And you could tell that it's this stable in how the established players are reacting.
Yeah.
And so that was really impressive. But if I'm not talking about starters and actual players, right? I love what Mahala was showing. I think
Oh,
he looked great in the scrimmage. He was arguably not arguably he was the best player in the scrimmage. He was getting on the ball. He was getting wide. He was finding space in between the line. He was doing everything that has been asked of him, and that everyone would say Mahala should be able to do this. Why isn't he doing this? He was doing it right, and he's showing more comfort in that role now. Inter squad scrimmage, even the FC Cincinnati game. We didn't get all that much information, but
yeah.
the live blog that FC Cincinnati had set up mentioned Mahala the most. So I
Yeah,
think that
number
that
7, I
is
think, is really good
number
tonight.
7 is Mahala. I think apparently allegedly yes, that is Mahala. Congratulations. And so that's a good thing, and it's also giving us indications of how people that were maybe a bit on the outside or on the fringes are bringing their game up.
Yeah.
So I was really happy with Mahala. I think is the one that stuck out the most. I think this is and maybe the most disappointing, not the most disappointing, because I don't think there was a worse player there because no one was actively bad. These are professional soccer players for God's sakes. If they were actively bad, they would have been cut by now. But
Yeah.
I think one of the people that, and this may be a fault, I may have to blame Samuel Piet for this, but I did not see as much as I wanted to from Usman Jabang, right?
Okay.
Samuel Piet went on and on about the steps he had taken. And again, Usman Jabang, when he was both as a six and as a center back, did well. He made no mistakes. He was strong on the ball. He was consistent. I think this may have been my fault where I maybe overestimated what Samuel Piet said and I set my expectations too high because he did not have a bad. I don't want this to get construed in any way, but I was expecting this monster to come in and just run shit, and he didn't. He was just kind of there at the level required. So I think he did a good job in convincing Nahakotoa that he should be staying and he should be the second choice proper six in the team. But I kind of wanted a little bit more. I was like,
Yeah.
where's the
Yeah,
dominance?
I get that. I get that. But it's just to kind of bounce off of that, like touch a few of the points that you said now. So to start off, you said about Joel Waterman. I talked a little bit about the ronda that we saw on Thursday night where the coach joined in. They were doing an exercise where the players had to do 20 consecutive passes, and if they
Mhm.
made it to 20 consecutive passes without the defenders getting it, it was a victory. It was they all cheered. Who was counting how many passes were being done? It was
My
Joel
guess would have been
Waterman.
Piet or Waterman. Yeah.
It was Joel Waterman, and he was loud. And the reason why that's important to me is because, when we're playing games in the backyard, we can do this in the backyard. It can be like, ronda, it can be like, I don't know, monkey in the middle, whatever it may be, right? Um, the thing is that whenever Joel wanted, and we had that discussion last season where he almost got the captain's armband or whatnot. I think I understood what Laurent Coteau was seeing with him because he seems to really like demand respect from his colleagues and his teammates, and not just demand it, but they follow him, they follow his voice, they follow, whatever it is. Oh, you messed up, no, no, oh man, you did a bad pass, but he's like, nope, that was bad, you're out, kind of deal. And they're all like, like, you know but it's a
Yeah.
little thing, like I said, it's just practice and it's tiny details that you're seeing, right? So it's definitely something that I wasn't like first time I see it like that, because at the stadium and during game time, you don't see these things, how he deals
Mhm.
necessarily. You would usually see him get very angry whenever he
You
gave up
see it
all
in
those
training a
calls.
lot, though. You
But
see it in training all the time.
training, you really saw how his voice stood out amongst and how as far as Usman Jamal, I will say this. I felt like in the past he seemed pretty lost. Actually, he seemed like the game was going really fast for him, and
Mhm.
he didn't seem to know where he was supposed to be, or how, or if he was even supposed to be on the field. He just seemed confused. The only difference I noticed, in my opinion, that when I observed him, was that he seemed like an MLS caliber player. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
say beyond that, because I don't know if he is beyond that, but he seemed like he fit in the group and he knew what he was doing and he was well in his place. At some point, actually saw him take George Campbell's spot in the defense, in the center back, with right next to Joel Waterman. Obviously, they're probably testing out stuff, seeing how stuff
Yeah.
works and all that. But he didn't. It wasn't obvious that his side was, say, lacking. But one of the players, if I can say, the player that impressed me the most was Julian Tenevicin. Oh my god.
Yeah.
The two practices that I went to, and then I spoke this with Maxime Thomas, I sat down with him. I was like, maybe it's just me, but I'm seeing this kid like he is flying left and right. He is. He's shooting well. He seems to have a knack for scoring goals. But the only thing is, and this is something Maxime Thomas, shout out to Maxime Thomas, he made me notice is he's avoiding contact. He is actively avoiding contact. And that's
Well,
okay. Like,
he's got that makeshift knee tape on him, right? He had the whole
yeah.
session.
Well, he
He had it
removed it,
all
I think,
week.
throughout
He removed
the
it on Thursday, apparently,
yeah.
right? It was back on Friday. I think maybe because it was a game.
Yeah,
But
probably.
again, that's why anything you say about John TV saying sometimes comes with a bit of an asterisk. It's when fit.
Yeah, and you're just like, every time he gets pushed, you're just like, "Will this one be it?" But beyond him being like, impressive to me, again, he scored some
Hmm.
incredible goals. He seemed to move around really well. Again, does that reflect to me MLS level to an MLS game? I don't know. Does that make him a starter? I think he still has a long way to go before we can even, consider him a replacement for Duke or Clark or anybody, because he has to prove. I think he has to prove to himself that he trusts his body and that he can
Yeah.
take on those hits, and because you do have to take a lot of hits as a forward. So, um, and apparently in practice from Sunus Ibrahim as well, according to Laurent Courtois. So, yeah, so that was the player that impressed me. And you're absolutely right, Joel Waterman, and the continuity is very, very obvious. Was there, and besides the player, were there any, say, good surprises? Something like, this is interesting. This is something I wasn't expecting in this camp. It doesn't have to be necessarily the players, maybe the coaches, maybe the admin, maybe what were you surprised about?
Can't say there were any real surprises. Anything that I saw was logical, right? I didn't see any regression, any
Okay.
kind of step forward. Like Jean TV was saying, who even during the scrimmage did have some nice moments.
Yeah.
Anything I saw was kind of, logical. Um, my biggest, I don't want to call it a concern
Yeah, because
because
I'm gonna get
everything
to the
was kind
next
of
bad
explained.
surprises.
Well, it wasn't necessarily a bad surprise, but it is a little bit concerning. It's just the amount of players doing solo work still. And Patrick gave us asked us about Rioni being able to join the squad next week. I hope so because a week missed, you spend a week working on your own to catch up. If that week happens to be the one in Montreal, fine. But I fully expect him to be in training with the team in Florida, or else there's an actual problem.
Yeah,
But there was a lot of players doing individual work, and for those of you who are wondering, it was Michael Adedogun, um, off the top of my
Brioni.
head, Dominic Yankoff, Caden Clark, Jalen Neal. Some of academy players were doing work off to the side, then they joined the group, and they went back off to the side. And it was a bit of back and forth, so I guess they had their own thing going on. Um, I miss Vrioni, obviously. I
But
believe
Brioni
that's
seems
it.
close, man. Brioni seems really, really
Well,
close.
he was doing mostly, it's mini workouts and muscle stuff. So I think that Caden Clark tweaked his ankle. Um, Jalen Neal had that injury concern with the national team, and he left the camp early. So there's some small stuff, and my concern is just that how long will it take for them to fully get into it, and will it affect their availability, and more importantly, their form when the season actually starts. If they miss out on like a month of training camp, or if they miss out on 3 weeks of training camp where they're just doing their own thing, so they won't be out of shape but they're not with the team. They're not working on the ball. They're not working in a team environment, especially for a new player coming literally to the other side of the continent.
Yeah.
New country, new club, new culture, new everything. It's kind of jarring.
Yeah.
Mauro, no, nothing about Jesse Saputo. He didn't struggle. Um, he didn't stand out. He was there. He actually he hit the post in the scrimmage. It was a nice turn and shot, hit the post, but um, I mean, he was at the same level as the rest of the academy players. If I'm being quite honest. Again, Alexander Goboglu was very strong. Graham Hosh was very strong, but the rest of the academy players, it's not like he was. Everyone's like he's gonna get bullied or he's gonna this or that. No, he's still a professional caliber football player. MLS maybe not, but again, remember he's still young. So give the kid a chance, right? Like you don't have to rag on him every single time because his dad owns a team. Just let him do his own thing. You're only gonna hurt him if you keep ragging on him. Just
I
let
mean,
him
look,
quietly work on his game.
in Orlando, like there were like this is what Maxime Truman reported that there were rumors that in Orlando he was one of the standouts in the camp, that he was doing a fantastic job. Um, but as I said, I spoke to Maxime Truman just while we were there, and he told me, like, as we were discussing, we said that was what they said, that he was in really tough form. But obviously as the weeks pass by, the rest of the team starts getting fit and they start getting up to level, as opposed to Jesse Saputo that was coming from Bologna, where he was already fit, he was already in game shape, he was already top
That is
level,
something you consider, yeah.
while everybody was maybe catching up or maybe doing individual work, as maybe they need some extra work.
Uh-huh.
And so I was really keeping an eye on Jesse Saputo, and I'll tell you what, I wasn't just paying attention to him when he was practicing. I was paying attention to him before practice. Okay. And in before practice, again, I don't want to read too much into it. This is something I shared with Maxime Thoman. I said, I feel like I saw him, everybody, all the trialists, all the academy kids, they're like consulting, the Samuel Pietz, the Mahalo Poku, shout out Mathieu Charon. And, they're all like just consulting, just like we would, like, well, before you're playing your Sunday pickup league, right? You're talking to your friends and all that. Something I noticed from Jesse Saputo was that he was really on his own, by himself. He would kick the ball to the wall, like he would kind of just by himself. I don't want to say that's negative. I don't want to say that's bad. Not every soccer player is expected to be social butterfly, but I think at some point, especially at his age, and I didn't see any players either try to go up to him and talk to him either. He just kind of seemed to be on his own bubble, but he like definitely was kind of on his own, and never really, again, I wasn't there all 5 days, maybe there were other things going on, but he didn't, as you said, Elias, once it feels like everybody's kind of catching up to the same physical shape and same intensity, he kind of just blends in,
Which is
like
not a bad thing. It's just
yeah.
it just is what it is.
And yes, every sprint, and I can't imagine um the kind of pressure he feels, because on Tuesday when I was there, they were doing a drill where they were running their
Yeah.
sprints, and he had to go through the sprint. And whatever the speed was, his brother's on the sideline, not Luca, the other brother. Why am I forgetting his name? His brother's name. What's his brother's name? What's Luca's brother's name? But
One of the Saputo brothers.
yeah, one of the Zamora brothers was in the sideline, and they were clearly teasing him. I think Gabriel Gervais was teasing him, and you could see him again. It might maybe I'm overthinking it, but it could maybe feel like pressure, like your brother's watching you.
Well,
Like you're
it's not just that, right? Like, and remember,
Simone.
he's Simone. That's it.
Yes,
He got
Jesus.
it. He's
Thank you. I'll
17
be
years
happy.
old still, right? You still have to give him like cut him some slack. Again, bro, like your brother's ribbing you. It's brothers, right? That's fine, right? I'm sure that he's known Gebajove his whole life just
Yeah.
because of the family, but it's the extra pressure from outside, from and I'm sure that it can be isolating at times, right? Because I'm sure he's 17 years old. He's on the internet. He reads people's comments. He reads shit. It's
Yeah.
impossible to stay off the internet, especially at that age. So I hope that he in Florida. If he does go to Florida, we're gonna hear about who makes the cut, quote unquote,
Yeah.
tomorrow,
Decisions
either
being
either
made.
late tonight or tomorrow morning. They told us. if he does go to Florida, I hope he does get the time to kind of away from all the lights and away from everything, just focus on your game. And maybe that will help him return to maybe being one of those standouts that was reportedly,
Yeah,
doing quite well. Because yeah, he's a 17-year-old kid, man. All these
yeah,
people, it's rude, right? If he was clearly not at the level, then you can start talking shit because it's a kid that's, just not fit. But nothing about the two sessions that I saw where he was there indicates that he's not at the level. That's not a fair statement compared to when you compare him with the other academy kids. That's just not true.
yeah. N- I don't know. To me, it was just an observation. Like I said, maybe I'm overthinking. I'm just seeing an outsider's perspective. We don't know. But as you said, Elias, the amount of pressure he must feel just carrying the name.
Yeah.
And Roberto said rookie treatment. That was not rookie treatment. That is not a
No,
rookie
rookie
treatment.
treatment is carry the
Carry
water
the ball.
bottles, clean up
Yeah,
put the balls in the ball bag, shit like
that is
that.
not
Not
rookie treatment. But no, it definitely was. Again, not saying anything bad about it. Just like I was just observing him, how he was
yeah.
around the others, and stood out to me. I asked you earlier, bad surprises. Did you have any bad surprises? If not, I could
Just
go
the
ahead.
amount of people doing individual work, the amount of
Yeah,
people that, didn't necessarily come from a different league or from like Victor Latori, who we'll talk about later, was doing solo work. That's understandable. It's his like first day with the club. That's cool. But a lot of people who were in MLS or who were at a training camp, 2 weeks ago, you're still doing solo work. Is it an injury? Please sort it out soon because again, concerning, not a problem, just concerning.
what's happening, right? My bad surprise, like I said, it doesn't have to be necessarily players. What was my say? Maybe bad surprise is the wrong word to use. I apologize for that, but something that kind of surprised me was seeing Marco Donadel as a coach. I wanted to observe. I wanted to see because he was supposedly a candidate to be our head coach instead of Laurent Courtois, right? Instead of Laurent Courtois, but instead he comes in as assistant. So you kind of want to see like what's the guy that was supposed to be. So that might be the next one in the chain, right? That we spoke about in the show. That is literally supposedly breathing down Laurent's neck. And so I also observed he was in charge so far as I saw. I don't know if Elias you saw differently, but what I saw was that he was in charge of the defense, of the defensive unit, of whatever it is that they were working on.
Mhm,
And what surprised me the most, and is that I'm sure he's a fantastic coach, is that he did a lot of talking. And I was again discussing this with my colleagues over there. It's where I was saying it feels like at times he talks too much, maybe, and you kind of analyze the player's body language, where they kind of seem maybe a little like, oh look, there's a fly, kind of like they just lose their interest, and that happens.
yeah,
I I was a teacher at some point in my job, and I remember one of the things that the hardest part of the job of teaching is keeping everybody's attention, especially when you have a
mhm,
team of it could be 5 people or it could be 30, but you
yeah,
have to keep these 30 people engaged. And the way you keep them engaged is not by saying, all right, everybody, 1 + 1 = 2. No, it's literally showing them, everybody, hold a finger, one. Everybody, hold a finger, one. How much is that? Two, right? Like you make them do stuff. So it
yeah,
just, again, it was not in the field, could not hear what was being said. He's very vocal and he's very loud, and people are listening to him, but it just felt like sometimes it may have dragged on. So definitely, we don't know if that has anything to do with it. If it's impacting learning, maybe people absolutely love his teachings. That's great. We all want that for the team. But it was definitely something that was shocking. Maybe the word that I used, bad surprises, the word bad is not good in the sense that it was just a shocking surprise. Anyways,
mm.
is there anything in particular that you would have liked to see, Elias? I know you touched a little bit on this here, but is there anything that you would have been like, I would have, this would have been a complete camp to me that I wanted to see?
No, I mean we got everything right.
Me
They
too.
worked on patterns, they worked on possession, they worked on shape, they had their scrimmage at the end of the week. I mean, I wasn't really left like, yeah, okay, I want to see a scrimmage every day. Let's be realistic here.
I
I
do.
think they, yeah, well,
Go play FIFA, Andy.
yeah, go go play FIFA, Andy. I we got what was fully expected, and yeah, it
Yeah,
seemed like it definitely was a camp.
yeah. It felt like a complete camp. If there's anything would have added the cherry on top for me, would have been seeing the newcomers play. Just practice. Just get them in the
Yeah,
scrimmage, see how they mend with the rest of the team. but maybe they're being precautious and they're waiting for the Orlando because according to Caden Clark, next week is when they start really getting down to it, right?
Yeah,
So
friendly. Well, they've probably got what 2 or 3 friendlies lined up that are going to
yeah,
be announced soon, and
yeah.
the
So there
real
you
work
have it.
starts
Would
now.
have been nice, but we can't
Yeah.
get everything right. So, but yeah, this week we saw Tom Pierce, Jonathan Sirois, Caden Clark, and George Campbell, and Coach Laurent Courtois give press conferences besides the Gabriel Gervais one. Did you have any takeaways from the two media days, which you were there for, right? With the players or the coach? Were there anything that stood out to you from any of those?
Nothing really stood out besides again the comment on Sergei Kozlovsky from the Courtois was definitely surprising as to why he wasn't there. Um, I feel this segues well into our next subject. The more telling was the people who weren't there, who were not available to the media. People like Nathan Saliba or people like Jaquil Marshall-Rudy. Those are I feel like that was more telling than who was actually made available because we didn't really get any kind of huge declarations from the players,
Or
but
Mahalo?
who wasn't there,
Yeah.
it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. So the questions become a little bit awkward for the players. Like Caden Clark spent a lot of his press conference asking, answering questions about the U.S. national men's national team, which is great because he had good success. But it's still like you said, it's one of those things where like what else can we do, right? So yeah, absolutely, definitely one of the surprise one of the things that we would have expected. Last point I want to touch on before we move on to our next subject. Anything in particular that stood out to you about the Gabriel Gervais press conference on Friday?
Yeah, that what was it? It was I forget who asked the question, but that Hennady Sinchuk was one of the biggest transfer fees in the club's history. That was very surprising to me. Uh, so yeah, I mean, we'll talk about Hennady Sinchuk
Yeah, we'll
right
talk
now.
about the
Actually,
signings, but
it's a good segue. But yeah,
yeah,
that was the biggest surprise for me.
to me, one of the things that shook, I guess, surprised me, and I was like, "Oh, look, he really went into it to talk about it." Was essentially when he talked about the when you asked the question, Elias, you asked him about what's going that you know the greatest reporter, but when you asked the question about JMR and Nathan Saliba, like what's going on? These rumors don't go away, right?
Yeah,
And he said, "Well, look, Elias." He looked at you right in the eyes,
yeah.
and he said, you know,
We
teams
rehearsed
outside.
this one.
He didn't answer straightforward. Like let's talk about these two. He said, other teams are starting to notice that rookies and young, not sorry, not rookies, young people play in Montreal. He said that he made a point to say young players play in Montreal, and that's something that he said play and develop. So teams are starting to notice, so and I thought that was something where he he really made a point to say it's not just just us. So but that's something that surprised me, amongst other things. He said a lot of things, and I encourage you guys to listen to the press conference of it, or if not, go to our Patreon page. We'll talk about that later. Moving on to new players and potential departures. So CF Montreal recently added Victor Loturi, which, by the way, I don't know about you, Elias, but I did a double take when I missed out the announcement.
I saw the tweet too, and I almost spit out my water until I read the whole tweet.
I was like,
Yeah,
not again.
welcome, Victor. Definitely carries some weight around here,
No,
and I was
I was
definitely
like,
like,
not
who?
again.
Not that
So
Victor.
then we saw the rest of the last name. So Canadian midfielder from the Scottish side, Ross County. He seems to be a box to box midfielder and joined the team at the start of this week. What were your thoughts of
I
this
like
signing?
this. I like this. Right, Canadian talent, technically Canadian international. I had some fun with Robbie about that. One time called up, so technically Canadian international. But I think he has a very interesting profile, and I think when you have a double pivot like that, like what will likely be the formation for Laurent Courtois, at least at the beginning of the season, it's a lot of running, it's a lot of work, and if you combine him and his work rate with a more creative midfielder, it does create that kind of synergy that made Nathan Saliba and Samuel Piet so efficient. So I think it's a good kind of impact substitution and really interesting depth player that they probably got for not too much money because he wasn't really playing in Russia.
How many Corpos? Do
Well,
we
it's
know?
not Gam,
Yeah.
so zero Krippos technically.
Damn it. But leads me to my next question: is he a starter, replacement, or a project? Oh well,
He's
actually,
not a
starter or
prop. I mean,
replacement, and then is he a project?
he's not a project because I mean, when you go from
23 years old.
CPL to Scotland, there's obviously something there. How old is he?
23, I believe. I believe he's
I,
23.
I think he's 23. I don't want to. 23 years old. He's not a project at 23. At 23, you're expecting a somewhat finished, not finished product, maybe not necessarily completely polished and wrapped for you, but you have a general idea of what you're getting.
Yeah.
And for someone like Victor Loturi, you know what you're going to get. So I think he's not. I don't think he's a starter, but I do think he's going to be a very important rotational player, kind of like Fabian Herbers. Different player, but same level of importance.
The midfield just got very interesting with that signing and the Herbert signing. It's like what is happening? And you know what? Through a practice, I know we talked about a little bit practice a little bit earlier. Herbert was actually one day he was practicing with the attackers, then the next day he was practicing with the
Swiss Army knife.
defenders. He really is a man that does it all. So a player that does it all. So it's interesting to see. I also think he's going to be a replacement. I didn't see anything in the 2 days of practice that made me say, "Whoa, there's Victor Laturi." Like I again
I
just
mean,
seen.
he was he there on Thursday?
Why would he be? Unless I missed it.
When was the announcement? The announcement was on Wednesday? It
But no,
was
it
during
was
the
on
week.
Tuesday, and
So
he
I
had
don't know if he
apparently
was
been
there
on
on.
Monday. He was there on Monday already, but nobody noticed that he was there on Monday. But pretty sure, unless
Unless I
completely
missed him, I wasn't looking out for who
I'll
wasn't
take
there.
it.
I was
I'll
more
take
looking out for who wasn't there than who was there,
yeah.
honestly.
But
But
yeah,
he was doing individual work on Friday, which means he was probably doing individual work every other day as well.
I don't remember seeing him individual work on Thursday, but okay. Doesn't matter. Anyways, like you said, I agree. No project, but probably replacement and hopefully no injuries. No injuries to say.
Yeah,
They also added the Henadi Sinchuk. Did I say that right?
you
Henadi
did.
Sinchuk, an 18-year-old Ukrainian midfielder slash forward that was found through the Bologna scouting synergy, as per Gabriel Gervais. What are your thoughts? Oh man, my thoughts on this one.
It's very interesting because again, like we said, one of, if not, no, not the one of the highest transfer fees according to Gilbert Javed that they've paid for a player for a 19-year-old, a U22 initiative. They said that they were going to be going in more on that than on designated players. Happy to see they're finally fulfilling that. 4-year contract with an
Heavy.
extra year option year.
That's
I
heavier.
don't know if there's a minimum requirement for U22 initiative contracts. I don't think it's 4 years. That's a lot. 4 years is definitely a statement. Uh, I think that was probably the most interesting thing. You look this guy up, his highlights, very, very creative player. Um, I want to see how he does in a tandem, right? When you have someone like Caden Clark playing with you, when you have someone like Bryce Duke playing with you, Mahala, different profiles, different requirements when you're two attacking midfielders together. Because he does seem to be like a player that likes to be decisive, likes to play, gets the ball, turns, does something immediately with it. None of this, you know, recycle, reset kind of play.
Are you
Um,
talking about Bryce Duke? Just say his name if you want
I'm talking about like 4 different people on that team.
to.
But when you look at Kane Clark and Bryce Duke, one is more going forward, one is more about keeping the ball and keeping the tempo, right?
Yeah.
Hinay Sinchuk is definitely more of a Caden Clark in terms of approach. He's a bit more technical than Caden Clark is, but the same thing is that he's decisive. And in MLS, say what you will about Hernando Losada, he said to be successful number 10 in MLS, you need to be decisive, and he's correct. So I think it'll be a very interesting addition. Can't really say much until you see him play. And again,
Yeah.
remember, folks, you get 1 year. You get a buffer you when you come to MLS. No matter where you're from, you
But
get a buffer.
look what Gabriel Gervais said, Elias, in his press conference. He said, "We will do everything," which I'm sure they've tried in the past to do everything, but we do everything to make sure he adapts to our city, to our team, to
Does that
our
mean you
league,
weren't
and all
doing
that.
everything when other players were here?
Yeah,
Like
it's
it's an empty
weird,
statement.
no? He mentioned it
It,
twice, and I was like,
it's
"What?"
a statement that you have to make to welcome a player, but I'm not going to read into it. You get a year. a full year unencumbered by injury,
Yeah.
mostly,
Yeah.
to adapt to the league. And if you're not as successful as you would have hoped or as the expectations were, you get that year. Year number two, you better put up or shut up. I don't care how old you
Listen,
are, right? You're getting this transfer fee. They're gonna do everything they can to welcome him because he's a teenager coming to a new country, a new club, new culture, everything like that. 100% get it. So use this year to welcome him in organically, not to be like, I need you to score 20 goals this year, by the way. No, no, no. What are you doing?
yeah.
Integrate him slowly, right? I don't want him starting immediately unless he is phenomenal. I don't want him starting immediately and this kind of pressure and you're asking him to do this and he's taking the free kicks, he's taking the corners, he's getting the ball every other play. No. Welcome to the club, right?
That's why you had the Bryce Dukes to test them out one last time, one more season, and see. Yeah, no, I agree. It's an exciting signing. Seems to be what we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it does seem like this is what the way they want to go forward with it, right? How they want to do their scouting with Bologna and all that. I know Moro was saying he was first supposed to be loaned out for Montreal for 6 months, which is what the rumor was a rumor. We never know if that was even part of the deal. We don't know if that was going to happen. We'll never know. The truth of the matter
He's
is,
likely going to be going straight to Florida, by the way,
yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah, he's
Not.
training with
I mean,
Bologna
he's
right
obviously
now.
not going to.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
so very interesting. I like you, Elias. I saw his highlights. He has a very interesting profile. Big kid, doesn't doesn't play like an 18-year-old. So we'll see how he adapts. I absolutely agree with you. People have to understand that there is an adaptation period. The only ones that don't have the adaptation period anymore are those that have played in the MLS at least for 1 year. They don't have that excuse anymore. But I know that fans in general are getting impatient because they want to see the shiny new object shine. So it's not so easy. But in your opinion, Elias, starter or replacement?
not going to comment. Um, I'm not going to comment. I think that you absolutely need to see with this kid because when you talk about Victor Latour, this is someone who has experience in Canadian soccer, was experience with the national team, was experience in this environment. Right, he played for Cavalry. Right, he's from Calgary. He knows Joe Waterman. They played together at the Cavalry. This is someone who is much more accustomed to what is required of you in North American soccer. I'm not putting any kind of. The question was how they found a wonder kid. Don't put that pressure. In fact, who made that comment?
Yeah,
Maro.
yeah,
Don't put the wonder kid label on him. Right?
yeah,
18. You sign an 18-year-old for close to a club record fee. That's inevitably the conclusion people are going to draw.
yeah.
I'm not going to make him a starter. I'm not going to make him a substitute. I'm going to make him just a player. He's just a player.
I mean, the length of the contract, Elias, says a lot. That speaks
Yeah,
like very loud. I mean, they gave him 4 years. That doesn't say perform me like show me today. I think he'll be a replacement, but he'll be a replacement. Probably get very few minutes. Really like integrate him little by little. First to get him used to a team, and then little by little get him an idea as to how the league works. Unless he gives us an insane every appearance he gets, he has really really good performances. Maybe he's able to adapt a lot faster than we think, and that would be a great surprise. Is he a project? Yep, 1,000%
absolutely project. Absolutely
project.
project.
Yeah, and I think Gabriel Gervais mentioned it. What do these two signings mean for the squad today? For those in the squad today, Elias.
Again, for the midfielders, it's nothing new. The competition was going to be brutal regardless. Um, you've got Nathan Saliba, Mathieu Piet, Samuel Piet. As your they have a head start, obviously, when you look at the double pivot, but Usman Jabang, who's taking steps forward. You got Herbers, now Latori. This five, right? Not even counting Biello, who technically is such a
He's
good level.
practicing as a center back.
I, yeah, but that's not going to get into the positioning because Luca Petrasso is a center back too.
All right.
That was more just of a numbers thing than a proper positioning thing, right? I think if anyone's going to play center back between him and Usman Jabang is far more likely. Um, but that's neither here nor there. The competition. I wrote about this in the Patreon, but cheap plug. I wrote about this on the Patreon. If you guys want to
Check
look
it
it up,
out. Check it
the
out. Check it out.
competition, the competition in the midfield this year is going to be brutal.
Mm, mm.
because of how many people can, at the very least, challenge Laurent Courtois to make a decision. Just make a decision, right? Because if I can play better than Samuel Piet, if I can play better than Nathan Saliba, or if I can play at his level, I can do it more consistently, and I'm staying fit, and this and that and the other, it's going to make for a very, it's a good headache to have, but it's going to be such a headache, and the competition is going to be awesome and super important, and that's how you push forward. Um, as for the attackers, I don't know where Sinchuk falls in that because there's so many players now that are fighting for 3 spots that he'll find his space, absolutely. But I wouldn't be surprised if he, especially if he doesn't, if he's not 10 out of 10 incredible during training camp, if he takes a while to get his first minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, midfielders, they're probably going to be super happy that they have either somebody to replace them or maybe somebody that challenges them during the season. Because it pushes Samuel Pia to be better, Nathan Saliba to hopefully push him a little bit to be better. Because he does. I mean, he's a fantastic player. I think he's done really well at such a young age, and teams have been noticing. But nothing really shows your best side until you have somebody breathing down your neck, right? As for the
Absolutely.
attacking, I think Bryce Took right now must be saying, "I really got to do it," and he has been practicing well. I will say that, in my opinion, I think he has been
Hmm.
practicing well, but
Hmm.
it's practice. Like I
Practice.
said, Jolante Vincent is also practicing really well. So we'll see. That's like you said, it's a brutal competition where I think last year we always questioned ourselves like who's gonna play every week because that's just what Laurent Courtois got us used to, where we just didn't know who was playing week to week. But this time around, it looks like we have healthy competition, right? So it should be really fun. Um, and I said that a little bit earlier that Gervais had said that his signing, I'm talking about Sintruk's signing, was a prime example of the kind of signings that the sporting direction is looking to have with the Bologna synergy. Do you expect more like these, Elias? And how patient can we be with these kind of projects?
That's you have to be patient if they're coming from overseas. It's a rule in MLS. If they don't have a, if they don't, especially if they're younger, especially if they're a teenager, come on. If they don't perform at the level you want, or if they take a time to adapt, you cannot immediately shut them out because they're not a 28-year-old player who's on year 4 of MLS that got traded here. They're a 19-year-old kid moving from a completely different country, from away from the only club he's ever known to an entirely new environment. That alone is worth 6 months of adjustment, let alone the traveling, the weather changes, I mean the fan pressure. Playing in Europe, you're gonna get pressure. That's not a problem. But all these different environments, right? Learning how to live in Montreal and how to be a functioning human in the city of Montreal.
And take the STM and the metro and know the metro lines. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? All these things at the
Yeah.
very least is 6 months, and we haven't even gone to football. We haven't even gone to on the field. So yeah, they deserve a year, at least a year, to kind of get their bearings. And that's why, again, project. And I don't want to label him a starter or a sub because I don't want to label him anything right now.
It's so hard. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think in past times, including myself, anytime we signed a player, the CF Montreal signed a player from Bologna, right away we were like, this guy's coming here to destroy the competition, destroy the league because
Mm.
they're from Europe and all that. But I think we quickly learned that it's just like you said, for them, outside of the field, the kind of maybe confusion that they feel because of the language, or maybe the them adapting to the city and all that. It's difficult. So yeah, absolutely. We do have to be project. Do you expect any more of these allies over the next few months? The summer, maybe. I don't know. I don't think
I
there's
wouldn't be
much
surprised
time.
for another one in the summer.
Yeah,
That's when the European season is over. We're not going to talk about the schedule, guys. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. Maybe we'll talk about it if it causes an actual problem, but I'm so done talking about the
yeah,
European schedule.
exactly.
But that's when the European season is over, right? So we might see some movement on that front. I don't think we're gonna get any kind of central type signing this window. If they do go out and get maybe like a left back or something, it'll be someone who's accustomed to MLS, someone who can kind of hit the ground running, literally. Um, but during the summer, I'd love to see another one. You kidding me? I'd love to see another one.
Yeah, and just again, we're almost ending with this subject. Do you know you've heard about the rumors? You've seen, read, and heard the rumors of Mahalo Poku being connected to getting garnering interest from Europe.
Yeah,
If he isn't sold this window, I know you were impressed with him in practice, Elias, but if he doesn't get sold or transferred or whatever, loaned out, do you think he still has a place in the squad in Laurent Courtois' formation?
absolutely, absolutely, he does. I look. You have to also remember the fact that he brings something that none of the other players can bring, and do bring. First of all, he's left-footed. Besides Prince Usu now, there's no other left-footed forwards. Just his profile, his mentality, and what he brings specifically is very different. And he's arguably the best one-on-one dribbler on the team, at least in attack. All these things you take into account, you have to find ways to get him in on the field in specific moments. I don't think he's consistent enough right now to universally say he's good wherever. No, certain situations, but that's what we're saying about Bryce Duke, right?
Yeah,
And look at you give him the time of day, and all of a sudden he's playing all the games and he's doing quite well. Say what you will, end of the season he was doing good. Mahalo Poku, you find the right scenarios, you build up his confidence, you get him to understand it, and then you can deploy him more consistently. Same thing. I think they should absolutely keep him.
I I will go against that because I don't think he has a place in this squad. I think last season, even during the most crucial moments, Laurent Courtois never chose him, or I think he was coming off the bench at some points. But I just unless, and we're not gonna get into that discussion today of the four back or three back, unless there's some kind of change where
A
they start
whole
using
episode
wing.
in of itself.
Yeah, if we see him go more as a winger, I do see him have a place. But as a midfielder, as a attacking midfielder, I do not see him. A striker, don't see him in this formation either. That's my opinion. I hope he gets transferred because I do believe he is very, very talented. But I just, and like you said, one of the most excellent dribblers. I mean, some of the goals that he scored with CF Montreal were literally a one-on-one with the center back where he made them dance and look silly and just scored.
Yep.
But it happened. There were too much. There was too much of a gap, and yes, he got injured, and that's a very good excuse to not perform well at the beginning. But I think at some point, hopefully, like he could get that back. I don't know if it's going to be with the team. I don't think it is. Um, I think he's going to be, especially as more signings get announced, the competition is going to get harder. So we'll see. We'll see in the next few hours or
We'll wait and
days.
see. Shout out Addy.
Yeah. So last question. So what players? Gabriel Gervais spoke about it on Friday, right? So he said that we're making very tough decisions this weekend. We're gonna wait until the ball is around Montreal is over to make announcements. So, what players do you think will go out on loan or be transferred in the next few weeks, Elias? Again, it could be crazy ideas, right? We're not the GMs here.
I think Alessandro Biel is going to get loaned out.
Hmm.
Um, you. I don't know if you made this or if you found
Yes,
this
I
online, but this is a very neatly made. You got the trialist super draft players, Bologna invitee who's just Saputo, and then also the academy players. Um, I could see. I don't see any of the academy players signing a contract this year. Um, as for the players currently in the squad, I don't think any of them are going to get loaned out. Honestly, I don't think any of them can afford to be loaned out. I don't think the club could afford to loan any of them out. There's no real projects unless they go out and sign another center back and another central midfielder. Then you can kind of argue that. But everyone is either too old or too in demand to be loaned out. What do you think?
You don't think Adedokun would be loaned out? I know he's on a 1 year contract with 3 years options. Do you think they would use this year to loan him out?
No, man. They were so excited to have him. I think they're going to keep him.
Hmm. I would see him. I would see either Adedokun being loaned out or, like you said, Bielo. Um, because Bielo needs it, man. He needs the minute. There is no way he can
Yeah,
stay in the bench again. It's not good for his progress. He might be very good or he might be very bad, but we'll never know if he doesn't get playing minutes, right? Osman Jabang, the best way we got to see what he's capable of was by
this
having
semester.
him play and be able to watch those games, right? But Bielo might be, the little we see in practice, he impresses me, but we don't know. right? So, do you think anybody's going to be sold in that list, Elias? Any
Oh,
surprises?
my gut keeps telling me that I don't think Mashrudi and Saliba are going to be here.
This
This gut feeling.
at
They're
the
being
beginning of the
so
season?
coy about it.
They
They're being
know.
so coy about it. I don't,
Uh, I think, I think Bryce Duke is going to be
yeah,
traded. Yeah, I say traded because I think it's going to be you
Inter
know,
MLS.
enter
I
MLS.
don't think
I
so.
don't
I don't
think.
think so.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like you said, gut feeling kind of, right? And I just think they're gonna capitalize on his last performances. Anyways, that's what I think. I might be completely wrong, and he might actually blow up this season. Hopefully for him, right? But that's our topic. Then we got one last one. We said Roses FC, right?
What is
Big,
FC?
big week for them, right? Roses FC announced this week that they are playing their inaugural season at the Centre Sportif Bois de Boulogne. Thoughts, Elias?
They were doing so well. The merchandising, the branding, getting the right people on board, getting the right football people on board, even the signings had promise. Why are you sending them to Siberia? Why are you sending them? Why are the Montreal Roses playing in Laval? That too. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not the Laval Roses, it's the Montreal Roses. Either way, whether it's Bois Boulogne, whether it's Claude Rabillard, whether it's some other venue, it's going to need modernization and renovation. If Claude Rabillard is the end game, just do it at Claude Rabillard. It's right there. I I don't get it. You you saw all the success, and I don't want to perpetually draw comparisons to the PWHL because it's hockey and it's an entirely different universe.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, you also have arguably the best players in the world in that league. So it's not fair to draw attention with respect to, you know, how this is being built. But one of the best things that is doing is they're making it so easy to get to games. Not just from a financial perspective, just to physically get to games and physically wanting to go to games. Making it in Bois de Boulogne, there's no metro access. It's like a 20-minute walk at best
Yeah.
from Cartier or Montmorency. Maybe they get a shuttle going from the metro, but again, you're just making it inconvenient to
Harder.
get there. You're making
Yeah.
it annoying to get there. I don't know if you've ever been to Bois de Boulogne. Getting there sucks,
Oh yeah.
right? You
I
cannot
probably
be
don't
putting
remember
yourself at
because it sucked.
you can't be putting yourself at such a disadvantage
Yeah.
so early on in your infancy because again, and this is what bothers me the most, they did everything right up until now. Everything that they had to do, they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
And this threatens to undo all of it. Because again, LP Hat fan says if the game's on the weekend, why is it a problem to go to Laval? I know it's how many times during the summer. First of all, you're going to be competing with CF Montreal. Second of all, why are you going to Laval in the summer?
Yeah.
Because before or after the game, you go to Stade Saputo, hell, you even go to Claude Robillard. There's stuff to do afterwards to enjoy being right the pre or
Métropole.
post match experience. You're going to Bois de Boulogne, and again, I rag on Laval because it's the Montreal thing to do. Laval is really not that bad. Don't tell anyone from Laval I said that because I have friends.
That's
But
the clip.
Laval really isn't that bad. But Bois de Boulogne specifically,
Yeah. Nightmare.
right?
Yeah.
I don't understand the logic behind it. I get it. It is probably the currently currently it is the best available venue, which is why and if you look at the tweet that they sent out, they remembered to put inaugural, right? This is not their permanent home, or else they would have said this is the permanent home of Montreal Roses. My guess is
In
that
the
is a
meantime.
placeholder. The thing is, you're taking a massive gamble putting your placeholder season in such a difficult to get to venue. The venue itself isn't that bad. But getting to Blood Boulogne
Yeah.
is, because the thing is, if you're going to have, you know, thousands of people descending on Blood Boulogne, it's going to be the end of the world. Driving, it's going to be the end of the world. And
Yeah.
public transit, if you do have a shuttle, shuttles are okay, but shuttles at the end of the day, shuttles stink, man. Right? Because it's just an extra step of public transit, and you're actively making it more difficult to get to your stadium. It's the opposite of what you should be doing.
I think what Elias is asking for, guys, is an Uber Deluxe ride
That
to
would be.
Blood.
Can you imagine 1,000 Ubers going to one place? That'd be a disaster. It'd be
The
even worse.
investment.
It would be even worse.
All
It's
five
so
stars.
much worse. Oh my god.
But look, go. You said it right. You said it very well. Like the wording in the post says inaugural, right? So it says like maybe it's temporary, maybe it's just one of those things like, guys, you know what? We're trying to do everything, but we're running out of time and we just need a place. So let's just make it. Let's kind of flip the script and say this is the inaugural season, nothing permanent, but it's the first Canadian venue designated for a professional women's soccer team. So let's turn the story that way. And that's good. It's not a bad thing. But then also, Gabriel Javet was asked on Friday. They asked him, had there ever been any negotiations with CF Montreal to share Stade Saputo? And he said that they needed to change their turf because it was at its life's end, right? It was dying. Apparently, the turf is dying, and they're in the process of changing it. Is this a better solution, Elias, to have done it, or is it a disappointment?
It's still a band-aid solution. I want them to have their own stadium. I want them to have their own space where they don't have to feel like they're guests when they're hosting, because then it kind of defeats the purpose of, or defeats a lot of the purpose of being the home team, is to be in your own space you're comfortable with, that you're in every single day, or constantly, right? They're not going to, moving in and out both teams of the dressing room is going to be very annoying. So I think that Claude Robillard is the end game. They should have just worked on that now, right? If you're going to be saying this is a band-aid interim solution, make the band-aid interim solution the one you plan to make permanent. And again, I'm sure that there's going to be media availabilities where they're going to discuss the logistics behind it, and we're going to get a better idea about the why and the why not Claude Robillard. But based on just first impressions, this feels like a step back.
Yeah. It's hard, man. It's hard, with the limited resources, that a new team has, and you have to kind of sell your product, right? So, I'm sure they try to turn every rock. They try their best, but some people might be happy with that story, while others might be, Elias that knows, Montreal and Laval so well, and has been there back and forth. These things, right?
Sure.
And unfortunately, and you just hope that the new fans, or the fans that are now Rose's FC fans, um, you know, will not go to these, and similar to what Elias is saying, and say, this was a shitty experience, man. I think I'd rather watch it at TV. I think I'd rather do this. I think, you hope that they can somehow flip the script and be like, whoa, I loved it. Yeah, maybe the ride wasn't the funnest, but once I got there, the vibe was pumping and I loved it and I want to go back, right? So I'll ask one last question here. So how important was it for Roses FC to have their own stadium at the same time having the first Canadian venue designated for professional women's soccer team? Do you think, as far as their name goes, that was the most important? How important was that?
It's and again, I don't want my excitement for this team to get lost in how upset I am in the decision for their venue for the first season. I just want, if we're going to have a professional league that is going to at least start to try and compete with other leagues internationally, you have to hold them to a similar standard. And you were talking about it, right? If the match day experience is not good, or not as good as it could have been, right? Just if you're already getting to the stadium partially annoyed, that's not a good start,
No.
because it will then hurt the atmosphere, which will then hurt the home field advantage, which will then hurt the players, right? I think that they owe it to themselves. Forget us, right? Forget the fans for a second. The fans deserve it, but they owe it to professional women's soccer in Canada to get this right. And so again, when we find more information about the why and the where and the when and the how and the pourquoi, we will be able to then talk about this further. But right now, this feels like a band-aid solution when there didn't have to be one. And
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah, it kind of like feels weird, but Elias, kind of, when you touch on other sports, I've been to football games, I've been to other soccer games, and parking and getting there to these stadiums is always a nightmare. Whether the best stadiums in the world to the worst, like the parking is super expensive, and even then, like it's limited. Even Stade Saputo is it has its headaches too to get there, but the experience that you have once you get there, we talked about it last year, Eliza. I told you and Hadi how the moment you step into Saputo Stadium, there is something so special about it, like
There's a
the
good energy. Yeah.
the energy, the music, the just everything, regardless of the score. Throughout the game, you just hear the fans. You hear that's what you want. So, like you said, it's gonna be a big thing for them to hopefully get going. And yeah, I think like you said, there will be a few announcements in the next few maybe weeks or months that will give us a little bit more clarity as to what's going on.
All that
So,
means is that you, the fans, have to,
and let us know.
show up and make the match experience worth it, because at the end of the day, that's only how it works. That's the only way it works. Is if people, you got to show up, you got to support, and you got to have fun.
Um, so apparently, just got a
Hmm.
message from someone that might
Oh
be
no,
listening to us that says that Claude Robillard is in major renovations for the next 2 years.
is it 2 years now?
Yeah. So,
It's like it's a longer band-aid solution than expected, I guess.
yeah. So again, they might have turned every rock possible.
Claude Robillard, the football area, because Claude Robillard is a massive complex
The Centre
where,
Claude Robillard, I guess the soccer area.
okay, because that doesn't necessarily mean the field area, right? So
That's all I know.
again, I'd love to get more specifics, and again, when
I'm
if
sure we
Roses gets the
will.
chance to talk about it, they will probably elaborate on that renovation and be like, "This is why we chose Bois Boulogne, because Claude Robillard is going to be our private home, our permanent home, but it needs
and
to be
and
modernized."
maybe it has something to do with the CPL. I don't know. Anyways, did we have? Let's not talk too long.
We've got one more question and a very interesting topic. We've got a question from Kevin Gromberg. Question for the pod: don't the new MLS rules combined with the new Leagues Cup format create financial incentives for Canadian clubs chasing profitability, like CF Montreal, to deprioritize or worse, tank the Canadian Championship? New rules say that Canadian MLS clubs can't do both the the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which is the Champions League, and the Leagues Cup, which mean and winning the Canadian Championship, which means you can only do, for what I just poorly explained, you cannot do three North American tournaments in one season, competitions in one season, which means Canadian Championship, CONCACAF Champions Cup, and Leagues Cup. You can't do all three. Vancouver this year is deciding to do the Canadian Championship and the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which means they're not doing the Leagues Cup. That now leads to a very interesting, not interesting, dangerous predicament. Is MLS actively trying to discourage Canadian teams from participating in the Canadian Championship?
Oh, man, that's it's getting tricky, huh? It's getting a little
Because
bit more.
the last 2 years, the League's Cup, this has been the case. One Canadian team has had three North American competitions.
You can view it that way. I want to say no, but it's getting harder and harder to believe it, Elias. I don't know. What do you think? What is your take on that?
After the way that they handled the U.S. Open Cup, there is not a doubt in my mind that that's their end game. Not a doubt in my mind that they are trying to just kill national cup competitions and replace it with their own brand. And that is so dangerous. And that makes me so angry, because I was already livid when they were announcing how many teams were not sending their full first team, the senior squad, right? Sometimes you don't play the full first team on a US Open Cup game, happens. So many teams are just completely withdrawing or putting their MLS Next Pro team or whatever, or completely withdrawing altogether from the US Open Cup. You are actively disrespecting like the fifth oldest currently running cup competition in the world, by the way. This is not some North American niche thing that's been happening for like 40 years. No, this is over a century old. And you're actively spitting on it for your branding. And I said this when the news first broke about that about a year ago. I'll say it again. I would not be upset if FIFA said, that's how you want to play. You don't have a national cup competition. You are losing your status as a Division One league. Because that's what they're doing. They're spitting on the national competition and prioritizing their own little private thing that they have with Liga MX. And now they're actively discouraging, they're actively discouraging Canadian teams from doing that as well. Who gave you the right? You do not decide.
And I hate leagues cup, man.
The way that soccer should be run as a league, right? You can try and Americanize as much as you want. Something like that you cannot ruin because that undermines the history of soccer. And for a league going into its 30th season and kind of touting, oh, we love our history and here are the retro kits and here are the throwbacks and here's this and that and this and that. Fuck your leagues though. Fuck your national competitions though. No.
Beep,
It's
beep.
utterly ridiculous. I don't know how you feel about this, but I saw this and I saw every single club has it on their team website. This modification 2025, actually modification. I don't know why I read it in French, but basically laying out why Vancouver was not in the Leagues Cup this year, and it's utterly ridiculous because you're essentially and Kevin kind of lays it out right. You're now asking teams, do they want to have 3 summer home games or 1 winter home game? Well, obviously, teams are going to pick 3 summer home games, right?
Yeah.
So now you're asking them to abandon the Canadian Championship and do this instead, or abandon the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which I'm not going to do because that's a continental competition, and do this instead. No, that's utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, it's this Leagues Cup thing has just become a thing. To me, has become a thing, more of a headache than an actual success. And I think they've tried to make it a successful thing, like try to commercialize it. And obviously, the first year of it, Messi took it by storm, and all of a sudden, the Leagues Cup is important. But there's a lot more behind that, and the consequences that is happening. It's angering a lot of fans, like Elias right now, and because it has massive consequences for the history of the sport here in North America and in America in general. So, yeah, it has to. There has to be a kind of an end game where it benefits everyone, and I don't think right now that's the case. They're kind of just shoving it in our face and be like, "You either take it or you don't." Oh, you're not in. Okay, well, we still got all these other teams, right? So it's just it's annoying. It's not. I'm not a fan of it. I like watching soccer. I love watching the game, and I love watching CF Montreal or any team play, but not at the cost of removing history or removing some of the things that happened, the great things in the
Kevin
history.
also made a good point that well, not good point. He touted a theory that this is also a chance for the for Canada Soccer to raise the profile of CPL teams if there's no MLS teams in it. Which I don't really agree with because I think that it brings good competition, especially when CPL teams beat MLS teams.
Yeah.
Because it reminds you just how good CPL is. If there's no comparison with MLS teams, and you can't really gauge how good they are. I think it's a good thing to have Canadian teams and MLS teams in Canadian Championship for many reasons. One of them being gauging how good CPL is. And semi-pro teams, right? Like you said, shout out.
Baby. Anyways, so guys, that does it for the show today. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show. As always, the podcast will always be free to listen and watch on all of our platforms. Make sure to check out our Patreon page that has exclusive member content, which we uploaded this week. Elias has uploaded 2 fantastic articles that you guys got to go ahead and read. And we want to go ahead and give you a big shout out to all of those who joined the Patreon this week and last and continue joining it. Thank you again to all those who tuned in tonight. And see you next week for episode 213 of The Ball is Round.